Hey helpers, you asked, what is attachment theory and how can I use it to better serve my clients? Well, stick around because you're in the right place here on the Mental Health Toolbox. I'm your host, Patrick Martin, teaching you the art and business of therapy. And today is a very special episode because here in the beautiful hills of Glendora, the pride of the foothills, as they say, in our own backyard, we have our very first in-person podcast on the Mental Health Toolbox. Our special guest today is Mary Sarkis, who's a licensed marriage and family therapist and attachment therapist specialist. So she's going to be here to school us on the importance of understanding attachment theory to better serve and understand our clients. So without further ado, hello, Mary. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Patrick.
My pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to take a first go at the in-person podcasting and coming on short notice to your office and letting me have this chat with you. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
So I usually ask my guests how you got into this space, right? As therapists, we come from all kinds of different backgrounds, and we all have our reasons for becoming therapists in the first place, different passions. I'm particularly interested in how you got into attachment therapy, right? And working with, I'm guessing, couples and this kind of work. Do you want to share a little bit about your background and how you got into this space?
Yeah. I remember being in school and then starting therapy, I think in school as a marriage and family therapist. I was if I was schooled in, we studied all theories, but if I was schooled in anything in particular, it was just working on improving relationships. So it was primarily actually Bowen family systems. Mm-hmm. If I really got more of any particular theory, it was that. But then later on when I got into the field, and I've been here in this office for at least 20 years in this very work.
Oh, really? Wow. That's a good stretch.
So worked with kids, with adults, with couples, with adolescents. I had a particular, interest in adolescents. Mm-hmm. And if people ask me what was your theoretical orientation, it was just, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I don't know. They were all the same to me. Mm-hmm. I would have described myself as eclectic. But then, I went to the couples conference and then learned more about EFT, mm-hmm. Emotionally focused therapy. And that got me into, attachment. And mm-hmm. I've really just started to feel like it really was a game changer, particularly in working with couples, but also in working with kids and adolescents. Parents would bring a child to me or an adolescent with any particular set of issues, but I always then just started to see it through an attachment lens and started to realize that there was always a problem with attachment. There was always an attachment problem with the kid and their, primary caregiver or both or step parents, but there was always something there. And it really then didn't really matter whether it manifested itself as depression or anxiety or, conduct problems, behavioral problems, school refusal. There was just, it always went back to attachment issues.
Excellent. So it's not necessarily even that people come seeking attachment therapy as much as attachment theory is the lens by which you're trying to understand and treat and help the client.
100%. Yes.
Wonderful. So since we're on the subject, obviously, of attachment theory, I know there's different styles of attachment. Can you tell us a little bit about what the principles or different attachment styles are and why they're important to understand in therapy?
I'll start first by just a very simple explanation of attachment theory as I understand it, or just the school of attachment. And that's basically, it is the idea, in my own words, it is the idea that the primary relationship or attachment relationship bond between a kid and their primary caregiver has or is the biggest predictor of emotional health or lack of it, and healthy relationships, or unhealthy relationships, emotional regulation versus dysregulation. Um, it is just the biggest predictor of that. All of those things. And so that is part of what makes it, so incredibly important. That particular relationship from early childhood is going to determine whether that kid grows up to be, a healthy child, teen, adult, has healthy relationships with uh, significant others, and even later on, what kind of a relationship and what kind of a parent they're going to be with their own children.
So across the lifespan, it has implications.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now we get into the attachment styles. And so the ideal attachment is for a kid to have a very healthy, nurturing, attentive, parent, and a good, safe relationship with their parent. And so they grow up to feel like they can trust themselves, that their needs are important, that they are lovable, that they are worthy, and yeah, that their needs matter and that the world is a safe place. And so they grow up to have secure attachments or a secure attachment style with friends, significant others, and later on their kids. They're able to handle criticism when it comes, and they're not devastated or crumble because they feel secure. They know they're lovable. They know they're worthy. They know they're, valuable. And so they're able to express their needs in a healthy way without maybe raging or the opposite of that, which is just not expecting their needs to be met. So then that gets us into the other attachment style. So the opposite of a secure attachment is insecure attachment, and Bowlby and the John Bowlby and the initial attachment theorists, they broke down the insecure attachment to an avoidant, dismissive attachment, an anxious or preoccupied attachment, and a fearful avoidant or disorganized attachment style. So the anxious preoccupied attachment is a person that may have had an inconsistent parent. And so the parent was sometimes loving, sometimes mean, sometimes reactive, sometimes there, sometimes not there. And so the kid grew up to feel like, I want this, I'm craving this consistent, love that I didn't get in childhood. But at the same time, they're not sure that they're lovable. They're not sure they deserve it. They're not sure the person will continue to be there for them or will leave them. And so they're constantly seeking reassurance, constantly seeking reassurance. So if I have a couple in here that is coming in presenting with any kind of problems, let's say they're arguing about money, kids, work, one of them is preoccupied, one of I am looking for themes like, the one, if there's an anxious attachment style in the room, they're going to be constantly questioning, do you love me? Are you there for me? Are you going to leave me? Are you going to be there for me when I need you? Sometimes it's, expressed in, you're not there for me, and, you don't love me. But it basically is, I'm not feeling loved. I'm constantly seeking that, reassurance. And it just plays out in every area of the marriage, including the bedroom, with sex. The person who's anxiously attached is always going to be maybe looking to please their partner for validation of their worth and being loved. So that's the anxious preoccupied attachment. It's always, do you love me? Are you there for me? Are you going to be there for me? Are you going to leave me? And they can be idealistic because they are seeking, are basically trying to compensate for the consistent love they didn't get, growing up. And so they're looking for that. And so they can oftentimes be just dissatisfied with the amount of love or attention they're getting. They're always looking for more because they just didn't get it, growing up.
And so that's always comparing them to the ideal. And then I know the term reflected appraisals in psychology. It's when we assume we know what somebody else is thinking about us and it's negative, right? And so other people become our mirror for our own self-esteem, right? So maybe the anxiously attached person is always assuming the worst, assuming that they're not enough, assuming that they need to do more in order to not lose the other person, right? So they can never really drop their guard.
That's
In
right.
that sense.
That's right. That's right. And then we go to another type of an insecure attachment, and that is the avoidant attachment. The person or the kid that grew up to develop an avoidant or dismissive attachment style, chances are they had a dismissive parent or an absent parent. It may have been a single parent that had to just work, all the time to make ends meet. And so they didn't have the one parent who was gone. And then the other parent who was physically there, the custodial parent, was preoccupied, was not emotionally available. And so the kid really had to depend on themselves. They grew up feeling like there's no point in expressing my feelings or needs because nobody cares. Nobody's really there, or nobody cares. It's me, myself, and I. In a home, for example, with preoccupied parents or busy parents or unavailable parents, that kid may have been an older child where they had to not only take care of themselves, in the case of, for example, a latchkey kid, or they also may have had to take care of their siblings. And so it was all about, your worth is determined by performance, what you do, and you just need to take care of yourself and kind of don't bother anybody. Yeah. So they grow up in relationships to feel like I don't need anybody.
Very self-sufficient.
Right. So the partner of a person with an avoidant attachment is likely to feel like I'm not needed. You don't need me. Because the person really gives off the impression that they don't need anybody and they're just independent to a fault. And they're not used to their feelings or anybody else's being dealt with. And so the other person's feelings are overwhelming to them. So when you have somebody, let's say, who is anxiously attached and they're seeking reassurance and they're maybe even picking fights to get the attention or to protest disconnection, the avoidant partner is going to distance themselves even more because they're feeling they can't handle negative emotions that come with criticism or the neediness of their partner, that those needs are very overwhelming to them.
It's funny you just brought that. That's exactly what I was just thinking. So if you have one of each, you have the anxiously attached person and the avoidantly attached person, that's kind of a really bad recipe for everyone being unhappy, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So not only, and that's not only does it matter just everyone discovering their own attachment style, because that affects how they relate to other people, but the combination of what is each person's attachment style in the marriage, that creates a certain set of issues.
For sure, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to make things more difficult, then some people have a fearful avoidant attachment style, which is a combination of the anxious attachment and the avoidant. And basically that person is, they crave closeness. They constantly want reassurance. It's not easy for them to feel loved. And so they kind of puts the pressure on their partner to be constantly making them feel loved because they don't feel lovable. So they're craving closeness, they want to feel loved, but at the same time, they are so vulnerable that anytime their expectations are not met, they vacillate and they go to the other extreme of avoiding, whether it's avoiding by distancing, shutting down, withdrawing, cutting the other person off, or even just throwing big huge fights, raging or whatever, and pushing their partner away. So then just imagine an avoidant person being married to that.
Absolutely. So in some,
They're going to be triggered.
I kind of think about that as the person who is rejection sensitive, who has that deep felt need, right, to be close and intimate, but doesn't trust the situation, so that they try and get ahead of it, right? So they'll avoid other people so that they don't get hurt, but what they really want is to be close, which is different than when you describe the anxiously attached person who then will will be very proactive about getting attention, right? But that's really interesting. I've never heard of it explained that way, like as a mixture, but that makes sense. Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
Yes. So again, based on the attachment styles in any particular couple, you're going to find them triggering each other in a certain way, unless you have the ideal, which I don't see too often in the therapy room, the ideal being two securely attached, partners.
Because if you had two securely attached partners, they probably would have very little conflict, I imagine, in that sense. They not to the point where they'd be coming to couples counseling so much.
That's
not
right.
For those reasons,
they would either not come, or they would just come, but just be very, very secure in their relationship and say, we just need a little help because it's good, but it could be great, so we want great,
Right. They're doers. They're ready to get busy, improving the situation, right?
Yes.
So
definitely not
work.
The couple that's going to be coming and fighting or raging, in the therapy session. It would, just what can I do better?
Excellent. I'm curious, what do you find most common in your office? Like, what kind of clients do you typically see showing up in terms of attachment style issues?
Are we talking about couples or beyond that?
Maybe both. Maybe just touch on both for a second. I'm curious.
What type of clients do I see showing up? I mean, really, I see everybody, and I take everybody, but exactly like you said, I see it all through an attachment lens. I see it all through an attachment lens. So even if I am working with couples that are in like affair recovery, we're talking again about repairing that ruptured attachment, and one, how can I trust again? Two, can you validate that their rage and that their sense of safety in the relationship has been yanked away from them? But adolescence, I see it a lot. I'll give you one example that comes to my mind right now. It was a client of mine whose parent was remarried. So the dad, she would often go to the dad, but the dad was probably avoidant, kind of emotionally disengaged. But she lived with mom, and she was constantly craving, mom's love. But mom was remarried and had another small child, a baby with the new husband. So my client just felt like she's kind of the odd man out in the home, that they were all a family, and that she was kind of and the mom had her at a younger age, but was had the other baby older, so she was a much better mom, and was more nurturing and attentive, and that can be very triggering for a kid who didn't get that, who is seeing that their mom, for example, is capable of giving that to someone else.
Right. Much easier to accept if you feel like, oh, that's just mom, I've learned to accept it, but then you see something different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I just kept saying, let's bring in the mom, and work with her, to help her understand the daughter's attachment needs, and hopefully to provide them. And you'll see that when the attachment is insecure, that the teen will be very scared to have their parent in here. It's like they are not expecting their needs to be met. They may be expecting some kind of backlash for expressing, their needs. And what I saw in the room that day is, after we, expressed to the mom, or I helped the teen express to the mom her daughter's need for just some time and attention with her. And I asked, the daughter the question. I said, would you like would you like for maybe for mom to spend some time, like for an outing with mom once a
Mm-hmm.
weekend,
Mm-hmm.
on the weekend, just, a couple of hours with mom? Or would you prefer mom to come into your room and check in on you every night, maybe for 20 minutes? And so the daughter said, yeah, maybe come into my room and check in, with me for 20 minutes every night. And the mom later responded with, if you think that I'm going to, give you 20 minutes, every day, like, I don't have time for that.
Mm. Ouch.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just twist the knife, why don't you? Yeah.
Absolutely. So while I that didn't go well, that did not help, repair any, attachment bonds
Mm-hmm.
or attachment wounds. It really helped me to understand the kid, and it helped me to understand, what she was needing and what she was suffering from. And she definitely had a disorganized, attachment, and would get into relationships that were very toxic with, you know, men, women, whatever, that were very toxic and very abusive. But basically, she was gonna just take love wherever she could get it, and didn't really
Mm.
believe that she was, lovable or worth more.
Worthy of undivided attention, keeping a high price tag on herself, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. So it can start at a pretty young age, those attachment issues. Um, when do you think, by what age do you feel like attachment challenges start to form? Do you think become a little more concrete?
I mean, in the DSM and the ICD, we have reactive attachment disorders.
True, true.
And so it's true that that's a pretty extreme disorder, pretty extreme manifestation of attachment gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But you see it, for example, with, foster kids. You see it with kids
Mm-hmm.
who of parents that were substance abusers, that were really experienced abandonment. But you also see it in abusive homes, or where the parents just didn't care to develop that attachment. So you see the kid, you're at the mall, and the kid from a young age just gravitating and talking to strangers, and all of that. It's almost like they don't know who's mom and who's not. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking for mom.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for mom and just anybody who will, like, give them
Right.
attention. So you can see it at a pretty young age, and oftentimes you see it with acting out behaviors. You see it with kids that are just have a hard time with emotional regulation, have a hard time with self-soothing. It's because they did not get that and find that, from mom or from a primary caregiver that comforted them.
That makes absolute sense. So it begs the question, you're an expert in this area, but for a therapist who's not an expert in attachment, what would you suggest in terms of helping the therapist put on that lens? Like, how could we practice that in session? Like, what would be good kind of starting points as we're kind of getting our feet wet with attachment theory, or intervention wise? What do you think a new therapist, or even a seasoned therapist who hasn't really tried this hat on, like, what might they do?
I mean, it really starts with, you have to really buy into the idea that
Mm-hmm.
attachment is the most important thing, and to look for it when you're doing, your initial assessments, your first meeting with the client, because a lot of times it is not possible, like with that client that I just talked about, the teen or adult clients whose parents have passed on, or they no longer have a relationship with
Mm-hmm.
them. It's not always possible to repair those, attachments, but sometimes you're it,
Mm-hmm.
as the therapist. So the therapist's use of self and creating that safe relationship, and helping them to trust
Mm-hmm.
and to feel held and nurtured, and safe, and supported. So sometimes it's, yeah, it's about that therapist use of self and the therapeutic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So that starts from the very, very beginning. But you have to really buy into the fact that this is what the client needs, the most. And it's not like I don't do other things. I will draw from, cognitive behavioral. If I have a depressed, client, I will be
Mm-hmm.
encouraging them to walk, to socialize, to,
Mm-hmm.
to get out of bed, to be assertive, all those things. But it all is just by itself without that relationship where they feel kind of unconditionally supported and that they
Mm-hmm.
have someone in their corner, it wouldn't be the same.
That
So
makes
so it
sense.
starts with the beginning, the therapeutic relationship. It starts in the assessment for looking for uh, what's going on in their attachments, early childhood attachments, and in their marriage with their kids, what's going on, because you might start to see certain themes for problems that are all kind of created by that.
Absolutely. So as therapists, there's the use of self. We're definitely using the therapy space as a way to model like validation, um, empowerment, right? Strength space. We're trying to model what an ideal relationship ought to look like. And we're also using it as a space to teach those skills and how to identify what they need within themselves and how to build build on their own relationships, right? Advocate for themselves. So that's really good advice.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good
Now,
starting
if I'm
point.
working with couples, then I'm definitely going to be helping them each identify
Mm-hmm.
their attachment styles, and I have certain assessments or quizzes that I give that helps them to understand that, and that's usually an eye opener
Mm.
for both of them, just about their own self. It almost just really helps them. It becomes a game changer in helping them expressing their feelings and needs to their partner, and now they're now talking about, they're keeping the main thing, and
Mm-hmm.
instead of just fighting about whatever has happened during the week, they now understand also through an attachment lens why why is it that their needs are not met in the relationship. And so it helps them to understand themselves, to express themselves in a different way to their partner, and it helps their partner to understand them and for them to understand their partner as well.
Excellent. Thank you. And where do you get those quizzes that you use? Like,
So I use a particular one. There's, if you look, online, there will be a whole bunch of them, including one by a prominent attachment contemporary therapist, Diane Heller Poole, I think is her name. So there's all kinds of attachment assessments, attachment style assessments.
mm-hmm.
I use this book and this website a lot, and it's a website called howwelove.com,
Mm-hmm.
and there's they call it the Love Style Quiz.
Uh-huh.
The Love Style Quiz is associated with this, and the reason I like to use this particular one, it calls the attachment styles by slightly different names. For example, the Fearful Avoidant, it calls it Vacillator.
Mm.
And so I explain it to my, most of my clients will take the quiz and they'll be like, I scored high on vacillator. What's that? you know? And so a vacillator is basically someone that vacillates between wanting
Mm-hmm.
closeness and then pushing, their
Mm-hmm.
partner away. Um, it does call it the avoider, the vacillator, the person with an attachment, sorry, with an anxious, preoccupied attachment calls them the pleaser.
Mm.
And so that's the person that's just always trying to spin their wheels, trying to get the love that, they don't feel is there, and is very just anxious and insecure about it. And and so that's pretty much, the four ones, renamed a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But the nice thing about this is that whatever they score, and once they've identified their attachment style and their partners, then they can look here and go read the book. And there will be information here, for example, about the pleaser. There'll be a chapter about the pleaser. There'll be a chapter about the vacillator. There'll be a chapter about the avoider. And there will be a chapter about the vacillator avoider
Mm.
relationship, or the pleaser avoider
Mm-hmm.
relationship, or the avoider avoider relationship, and what that looks like. So it really just almost gives them a map and a blueprint for what's going on, in their relationship. So
That's
this is the
fantastic.
Love Style Quiz, and it's on a website called howwelove.com.
Excellent. I would definitely put that in the show notes. Appreciate that. Yeah, this has been really, really, really helpful for our audience. I'm sure, attachment is one of those things. I think if you're not really attuned to it as a therapist, sometimes it's one of those, I'll get to that sometime. Like, I'll learn about that. It sounds really interesting, but I'm a little intimidated. So hopefully this helped our audience feel a little less intimidated by using an attachment lens to better help our clients. If anyone is watching this, listening to this, is interested in working with you, whether they live in the Glendora area or somewhere in the San Gabriel Valley, and they want to get in touch with you, the best place to find how to reach out, is that through Psychology Today?
I am on Psychology
Okay.
Today, and I'm just on Google.
Okay, Google Mary Sarkis LMFT, or Psychology Today Therapist Finder. I'll make sure I put your profile in the show notes. Are you doing telehealth as well?
I am.
Okay, so if you're anywhere in California, if you're a therapist and you are working with a client that you think needs more specialized help in the attachment space, you can always refer to Mary, right? And that's an option as well. Any last words of wisdom? Anything that you think would be helpful for our audience?
Well, I'd like to highlight another book.
Yes, please.
And that's Hold Me Tight. And that book has really changed some marriages. And this is
Excellent.
by none other than Dr. Sue Johnson, the founder of EFT, Emotionally Focused Therapy, just a modern couples version of attachment style or attachment theory.
Mm-hmm.
And this book is good because I will have the clients read it along. It's not just for therapists, certainly beneficial for therapists. Both
Mm-hmm.
of those are, but also both of them are beneficial for, the clients to do. And I've done therapy where I will go kind of chapter by chapter, and it has some exercises for the clients or the couples to do together. And I've really seen couples find some hope and be transformed through this.
Fantastic. Well, that's definitely going to be on my reading list. Hopefully they have an audiobook, so I'm a big audio fan. Very good. I love my Audible. I can mow the lawn and listen to a book. What's better than that? So thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate you making time today and availing your office space and using this as an opportunity to help more people out there who wouldn't otherwise have access to this information.
You're so welcome. Thank you for what you do.
Oh, my pleasure. So anytime you want to reach out, if you ever want to do this again, just let me know.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sounds good.
You take care.